there is something that's more important, more powerful, more exciting than anything we've ever thought about. And that something is very closely related to us. It's not something remote. It's not something that we can accomplish or own or achieve. It's something much closer than that. It's something that is us. It is us in a way that we can never leave it. It's with us, it's in us, and it gives us life. And no matter how many times we've imagined it, we haven't even tasted its real power. We haven't really understood what's being said. No words can describe what's being said. So all words, everything that can be described in the world of concept can never come close to touching the importance and the power of this thing that is you. This thing that is you uses concept, uses words, uses ideas to create and to express itself. But all those concepts can never reach at the depth, at the power, at the significance of the one they're emanating from. So in order for the mind to be able to describe this entity appropriately to the heart, so that the heart can find peace, security, and joy, the mind needs to be developed. The mind needs to practice. The more the mind will practice, recognizing the source that gives it power, that gives it life, recognizing the significance of the wisdom, the capabilities of this force, this entity that creates you from within and dwells within you. The more the mind will practice, the more the mind will develop, until it can draw an image, it can draw a concept of this entity that causes this entity to rejoice and to appreciate its own existence. in order to practice, we want to first remove from ourselves all previous concepts that our mind has drawn, because in all those concepts, the being was not found. All those concepts, as deep and as meaningful as they might be, are not enough. And so now we want to go deeper. We want to develop further. We don't want to repeat. So in order not to repeat, we first come as close as we possibly can to the state of silence. When we say this being is powerful, and we want to describe this to our imagination, because simply the word powerful doesn't do it any justice whatsoever. And so we can use the reality around us to describe to our imagination the greatness and the power of this being. This will result in our animal instincts, in our lower self, desiring access to our higher self. And so to describe to ourselves, for example, the power of this being, we can realize that anything a human being ever accomplished from the beginning of time was accomplished through the power of this being, this very same being that resides inside of you. The miracles of the prophets was done by this very same being that resides in our hearts. Everything throughout history, the greatest of men, the deepest realizations, those who formed the destiny of humankind, all by the power of this very same entity that's listening to me right now. And so when the imagination perceives this realization, it desires to know the entity. When that desire grows strong enough, then the energy within the body is directed towards the brain in order to develop deeper realizations. And then the intelligence tries to unite with the source of itself. Because this story, this concept of prophets and miracles, they reside still in the imagination. This is not an image of the being. This is just a concept that excites the imagination. But then this concept drives the animal spirit to search for its divine origin. Now it comes to realization that there is where is hidden its greatest good. So before, it develops the capacity to realize the greatness of the spirit that gives it life. The imagination, the animal spirit, is directed by what's coming in from the senses. It desires fulfillment from the external world. But when it comes to a deep enough realization of what it's really interacting with, when it comes to a deeper realization of what's available to it, if it succeeds, then everything the senses can supply seems like child's play. This is the capacity for eternal joy and security. This is not about a fleeting sensation. This is about the realization that we carry with ourselves from one world to the next world. Going between worlds becomes like going between rooms, because this is the nature of our being. We know this because the wise have experienced it directly. But once the wise have experienced it directly, we know that that's what our being is capable of. It's the same being. And what it's capable of is what it is, what it was before it was born, and what it will be after it passes. What it does, what it manages to demonstrate, is not what it is. What it is the capacity for anything that was ever demonstrated, and an infinite amount more. So once the imagination desires more intimacy with the intelligence that is causing it to be, it gains the desire for silence, because within silence is where those elements unite. When the imagination is not silent, it's creating its own reality. Only when it comes back to silence does it finally get to realize the potential, the capacity that is truly always available to it. Except it doesn't believe that those things are available, because it hasn't experienced those things. It's not aware of its capacity. It's not aware of its potential. It's been doing the same cycles for years and years. So the imagination comes back to silence in order to forget some of its assumptions, so that it can heal from its own opinions. And then it can come forth more aligned with its own nature. Then it can interact with reality from a place that allows it more access to its own power. Its own power, power of life, the power of interpretation, the power of belief. And these powers direct all manifestation. They direct the entire globe, they direct the solar system, they direct the cosmos. Everything from inside of us. Inside of us is guided by the will, the individual will, as it receives life and interacts with reality. The individual will is running the individuals. And then that aggregates into a collective will that's running the collective. Everything else in the cosmos is run by order. It's not run by will. It's run by the cycles of nature. Cycles of nature that have been predefined. They cannot change. They cannot go wrong. They cannot miss. The only place that's open for manipulation, the only place where anything can go right or go wrong is within the human being, because the human being is not directed by order. He's directed by will. And this will is spontaneous. This will can be manipulated very easily. This will is the weak spot of reality, but it's also the strong spot of reality, because this is where, when we're going to learn how to use it right, we're going to make life extremely enjoyable. And so the whole cosmos is running on you and me. This is not fiction. This is not a plot in a story. This is the reality. This is who you are. This is what you were born to be. This is what you were designated to be even before you were born. You were designated to come into this bodysuit and run the universe. So return to the silence, because even this, even the cosmos, is just concepts. Concepts to excite the imagination. To excite the imagination so that it wants to meet the one, the power, the force, the intelligence that created it all. And in order to meet that intelligence, it needs to unite with its own intelligence. To bring your imagination back to silence, where it can unite with the intelligence that's creating it. Allow all of you to unite. All of the organs, all of the limbs, unite through the imagination with the intelligence that's creating them and resides within them. Just allow everything to become one big unit, because that's exactly what it is. That's what it always was. So just realizing reality brings the imagination back to the intelligence that's creating it. The intelligence that's creating it is the intelligence that's creating reality. Just unite all of yourself together again. This is how fast the internal and the external can mix. Back to reality. The reality is that now We're here. And everything inside of us is still one. There's no one else. There can be no one else. So gather all of yourself, your source, to the place from where you emanate, to the silence that supports all the noise. Become one with that silence.